Mr. President, today is Tuesday, and now be the time for the flag salute.
Okay, you know what, members? I'd like to do something a little different today. If I could get Chris and some of the other veterans to come to the center, and we'd like to have you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you just come step forward. Members, all rise. We're going to be led in our flag salute by our veterans that are with us today.
Everybody place your right hand over your hearts. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to thank you, you guys, so very much for leading us in the pledge. Mr. Krekorian, the floor belongs to you, sir.
Mr. President, thank you very much. Kind of you to say, but the floor does not belong to me. The floor belongs to the men and women who are sitting here to my left and to my right. And this year, as every year, it is an incredible honor for the City Council of Los Angeles to be in the presence of so many men and women who've served our country in the armed forces. Throughout the United States this morning, in bustling cities and in small towns, Americans are gathering, as we do here, to honor the men and women who've disrupted their own lives and in far too many instances sacrificed their own lives in service to our country so that all of us can live in freedom. There's a kind of an irony in the fact that Veterans Day began as Armistice Day to commemorate the end of World War I, which at the time people described as the war to end all wars. And of course, we know in retrospect that that assumption was badly mistaken. World War I was not the end of war, and had it been so, perhaps we wouldn't have needed to count on future generations of Americans, noble men and women who've stepped up and answered the call to serve. But we know that that brief moment of global peace following that war wouldn't last. And every generation of Americans since then has been called upon. And in vast numbers, they've answered that call. Ordinary people, teachers, mail carriers, doctors, clerks, people who, to a person, would have preferred to continue to live their lives in peace with their family and friends, but they knew that their country needed them, and they answered that call. They weren't action heroes in movies. They weren't mythical gladiators. They were ordinary men and women, ordinary Americans, who, unlike the rest of us, went in the direction of danger. They put themselves at risk so that the rest of us could live in peace. A few years ago, I went to the landing beach at Normandy. And if any of you have ever made that trip, you know how overwhelming that experience can be, that sense of vast scale when you see the place of the largest amphibious invasion in the history of the world. You see a place where hundreds of thousands of troops clambered up the beach, clambered up the cliffs, tried to, against all odds, establish a beachhead so that the rest of the invasion force could come aboard and liberate all of Europe. And you've also seen, if you've been there, the U.S. cemetery at the top of the hill. Just thousands and thousands of white crosses and Stars of David lined up row after row after row, and it seems to extend without limit to the horizon. And when you see something like that and you see the vast scale of it, it's easy to lose the fact that even in a history-changing event like that, it wasn't the fact that it was 150,000 people. It was each one person, just like the people who are sitting here, who individually made that decision, individually ran forward when the gates came down, individually fought to establish that beachhead. Each one of those people put their own lives in danger despite their terror. They moved forward and did that unnatural thing, and the world owed them a debt of gratitude because they were able to do that. In doing that, they gained their place in a long and strong chain of sacrifice that's connected every generation of Americans to the one that came before. It's a chain that began when the farmers of Concord put aside their pitchforks and picked up their muskets and forced the king's troops to retreat at the North Bridge. It's a chain that continues even to this day as our all-volunteer military bravely endures almost unimaginable chaos in parts of the world that none of us would ever want to visit. And we should remember that many of the troops that are serving overseas now are National Guard members who didn't expect that they'd be called upon to this degree when they signed up. Over the course of our country's history, the world has certainly changed and our armed forces have changed with it, but one thing has stayed the same: the valor, the dignity, and the courage of the men and women who wear our uniform. Each of them in each generation has left a legacy of freedom, and they taught their children and their children's children and all of us the value of sacrifice and devotion and service, and most of all, love of country. The citizen soldiers who are here with us today have become our teachers. Through your service, you remind us of the principles for which our country stands, and you remind us of the courage and commitment necessary to maintain those principles. You remind us both of the blessings we enjoy and the cost we must bear as citizens of the last best hope on planet Earth. So I think it's important that we remember that now it's our turn, too, to serve you. And right now, there are far too many veterans who don't have jobs, far too many veterans who are living under bridges and on our streets. And our homeless committee is busily working right now to ensure that we get every homeless veteran off of our streets. And in our jobs committee, we're working hard to make sure that every veteran who comes home will have a job and be able to take care of their own family the way they've taken care of their duty. We're in debt, and we thank you. May God bless all of you who've served. May God bless the souls of our departed, and may God always bless the country for which all of you sacrificed and served. Thank you all very much to our veterans. And so now, members, we know that after our veterans have served, they come home and they continue to serve our community. And it's a great pleasure to ask each of you to recognize a Veteran of the Year for your district. And I'd like to start us off, if I may, by recognizing Dick Klein as our Veteran of the Year in the 2nd Council District. And as he comes up, let me just say a few words about Dick, who is, Dick grew up in Woodstock, Illinois. He moved to Los Angeles in the 1940s and worked in the aerospace industry before he joined the Marine Corps. Come on up here, Dick. Dick joined the United States Marine Corps, and he was a PFC serving in World War II. Among other places, he served in the Battle of Iwo Jima with the 5th Marine Division, at the same time that my dad was serving on Okinawa with the 6th Marine Division. And Dick, it's a real pleasure to have you with us here today. In combat, he sustained injuries and received the Purple Heart. He served for 20 months in theater in the Pacific, and after he came home in 1970, Dick married his wife, Willie, and they've been residents of Valley Village since 1974. After owning an antique store and working in the manufacturing industry, Dick really continued to serve our community in so many ways. His volunteerism has been kind of legendary, and even today, at 92 years old, Dick is an active member of the community, and he can be seen around First Christian Church doing repairs and whatever the church needs, helping out the food pantry. The senior pastor at First Christian said this about Dick: "No matter what you ask of him, He steps up and helps out. He's truly a great wealth of information when it comes to fixing things and finding solutions. In 1994, after the Northridge earthquake, Dick helped to repair the church and fix it up, and he continues to volunteer with the food pantry, helping our homeless and those in needs. He works with the police in the Valley Bureau Community Police Academy, Valley Village Neighborhood Watch, and he's CERT trained. So in the event of the next emergency, Dick is going to be ready to answer the call again. So, Dick, it is a great, great pleasure to be able to present you with a certificate on behalf of the people of Los Angeles. Thank you very much, and congratulations. Great. You look right over here, Dick, for a second. It's okay. It's okay. All right. So now, members, we're going to go around in numerical order. So we will start with Mr. Cedillo, if you're ready, representing Council District 1.
Can I go there, or you want me?
Whatever is your pleasure.
I'm looking for your guidance, Mr. President, here or at the podium?
I think we should do it from our chairs and
Good
just
idea.
ask your honoree to come and stand beside you.
Art.
Or either they can sit in your chair. They deserve the right.
Many of you know grew up in a household. My father was a member of the 82nd Airborne, most significant part of his life, going to the South, 1948 to 1952, preparing to jump out of planes to serve our country. I grew up in a household where that was the values and were the values of our life, and our commitment was to our country. You don't have a greater appreciation, Mr. President, for our country than when you travel. And as some of you know, I was out of the country during the break, and I came back and participated in several veterans events this weekend. Very poignant weekend as we grapple with the challenges of homelessness. One of the groups, as was stated, that's particularly impacted and should not, I say to you, should not have any relationship to homelessness are our veterans. There shouldn't be one homeless veteran in our city, in our state, or our nation. And we will not welcome them home until we make sure that that is no longer the case. As I said, it was an incredible weekend. I was at the Six, which is down the street on 8th and Carondelet. I was with the American Bankers Association, and the Six is a place that invests particularly in housing for veterans. And then I was also in the Northeast at a parade yesterday at another development for special needs housing with a focus on veterans. And we have a new project coming up in Pasadena Avenue. So we're very excited of our work and our commitment. But today we're here to honor art. And art is, I'm going to be on my soapbox today because I'm not happy with some of the things that have happened recently. The court has erred in its judgment over this president and affording him the rights that every other president in this nation has ever had, an executive order. And I hope that we move to the Supreme Court and they make the right decision. Art is an immigrant born in Mexico City, brought here by his parents in 1944, and has served our country as a Marine 6 years. Proud Marine. Once a Marine, always a Marine.
Always. Hoorah.
That's right. Hoorah. That's what Dan Savage would tell me. Once a Marine, always a Marine. He's a stalwart. Grew up here in Los Angeles, much like my dad, down the street in the Echo Park area. They moved over to the Northeast, over in the Cypress Park area. And he's a great volunteer. He's in the Legions. He helps us with our annual Cypress Park. Where's Marcus? Marcus, where are you? There you are. Oh, here's our guys. Our annual Cypress Park. All our guys are here from CP. The CP boys are here with our Cypress Park events, which is one of my favorite events of the year. And so art embodies what it is to be an American, because it's also, to be an American is to be an immigrant and to love this country. So proud of being an American. Got his citizenship in 1960, right? And just a stalwart of our community, a great volunteer. Worked with a group called Peace Warriors, working with at-risk youth. And just, as I said, and I'll repeat it, he's a stalwart of our community. You see him at every event. He's a great volunteer, and he's a great leader, and he's a great American. And for that, we thank you. Our nation, our state, and our city thanks you for your service.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
I'm proud of you.
Say you're proud.
The only thing I regret is they didn't have a birthday cake for the Marine Corps birthday, 240th year. But otherwise, I thank you for the recognition.
Okay. Thank you, Art.
So I guess we move now to Mr. Bloomingfield.
Going in order, assuming District 1, Paul was 2. I think I'm probably number 3 here. So bring up Sergeant Ortega over here. Hello. Sergeant Tony Ortega is a first-generation American born to Cuban immigrants in Indiana. In August in 2007, he joined the Army to provide financial stability to his family and to serve the country that he loves so dearly. In 2008, he graduated basic training at Fort Sill and later received his first assignment to Fort Hood, Texas, in April of 2008. A few months later, his unit was deployed to Afghanistan in support of Operation Enduring Freedom, and he would later return in 2009. In 2010, his unit was again scheduled to deploy to the southern region of Afghanistan. And this time, Sergeant Ortega had a choice. He could either finish his remaining time stateside in relative safety and luxury, or he could extend his contract to meet the requirements of the deployment. Faced with that decision, Sergeant Ortega volunteered to extend his contract in order to be eligible for redeployment in Afghanistan. While in Afghanistan, his unit route included clearances of improvised explosive devices in one of the most dangerous regions of eastern Afghanistan. He's seen it all. Sergeant Ortega returned safely home from Afghanistan, where he has since been assigned to the Los Angeles Recruiting Battalion. He currently serves as an Army counselor and a mentor in the San Fernando Valley. He has the good sense to both live and work in the 3rd Council District. He lives in Reseda, works at in Tarzana, and he's a highly decorated soldier. I mean, when you start, I could spend the next half hour going through all of the awards that he has, but I was told not to do that because other people want to get a chance to speak. But he earned so many awards, ranging from the National Defense Service Medal to the NATO Medal, to many. He has been a brave soldier, and as a veteran is giving back to the community every day. He and his wife, Allison, are the proud parents of a 10-year-old son named Anthony. And on this Veterans Day, it is both an honor and a privilege to thank one of America's finest heroes. Let's give it up for Sergeant Anthony Ortega of the United States Army. Please accept this small token of appreciation.
Appreciate it, sir. Thanks.
Mr. Rue, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today I'm honored to have Bruce Striegel, a native Southern Californian and proud Rotarian who began his military service in 1965. He was first sent to basic training in Fort Polk, Louisiana, and later served in California for a brief time doing radio and production art for Uncle Sam. In 1966, he received orders to report to Patton Barracks in Heidelberg, West Germany, and work for technical intelligence. This was during the Cold War, and his department helped analyze photographs and created illustrations based on their intelligence, taking over suspected and key Soviet military sites. He was honorably discharged later and received the Good Medal of Conduct and the National Defense Service Medal. But Bruce commented to me earlier that going into the service was the best thing that ever happened in his life. Because during his service, he traveled extensively all over Europe. And in Heidelberg, he met the woman who would later become his wife. Today, he and his wife Heidi lives in Windsor Square, and his darling wife for 46 years. On behalf of the City of Los Angeles and the residents of the Council District 4, we commend and honor Mr. Bruce Striegel for his years of committed service to our country. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Hold it? Yeah, right over there.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Koretz, are you ready?
Mr. President, I'm sorry. And also, I just wanted to, at this time, recognize a member of my staff who, like many of our staffs, is a military veteran as well, of Navy Intelligence, Adam Miller. Thank you.
Let's give Adam a round of applause.
Thank you, Mr. Striegel. Thank you, Adam Miller. And to all veterans, our heroes of freedom. Thank you.
Mr. Koretz.
Well, thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Councilmember Krekorian, for this wonderful presentation, and thank you to all of these magnificent heroes that we're honoring today. For me, it's both a privilege and a special treat to salute and celebrate Colonel Robert G. Hale, who's both a great patriot and a great surgeon. Colonel Hale served our nation with utmost honor, including 15 years in the U.S. Army and 15 years in the U.S. Army Reserve. In 2003, he was activated to serve 2 tours of duty in Kuwait and Afghanistan, leaving his established oral and maxillofacial surgical practice in the San Fernando Valley for an additional 12 years. He's received 2 Bronze Star medals for exceptionally meritorious service in both Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation Enduring Freedom. He's also been presented with the Armed Forces Reserve Medal with 20-year hourglass device and the Order of Military Medical Merit, the Legion of Merit, the Meritorious Service Medal, and the Humanitarian Award from the American Association of Oral and Maxillofacial Surgeons. He's held many crucial positions in the military in order to lead, teach, and train countless people in the performance of vital surgeries and the best of combat casualty care. I don't think any of us, unless we've been there, can imagine what a transcendent difference he's made for countless soldiers and their families, not just in the saving of lives and the reduction of pain and the restoring of health, but in helping and repairing our wounded veterans for a happy and successful return home. A professor of oral and maxillofacial surgery, Colonel Hale is an esteemed writer and lecturer in his field and is treasured in the San Fernando Valley and throughout Los Angeles for the outstanding surgical care he provides in Woodland Hills, even while he's continued to serve in the U.S. Army Reserve. In 1 year, Colonel Hale will time out of the military and thus be fully retired from the Army, but he'll be forever proud of wearing the uniform, as we are of his decades of devoted and exemplary service. So thank you, Colonel Hale. And also I want to welcome his mother, Carol, his mother-in-law, Vicki, his wife, Sue Ellen, and his son, Tyler, to the council chambers. Let's give them a hand as well.
Mr. President, if I may, Ms. Martinez is not with us today, so I'm going to pinch hit for her on behalf of District 6.
Thank you, sir.
On Ms. Martinez's behalf, it's a great pleasure to be able to introduce all of you to District 6's Veteran of the Year, Sergeant Shanti Acevedo, who is a resident of Panorama City. Sergeant Acevedo served as a field artillery mechanic and was assigned to a combat recovery vehicle team with the 1st Infantry Division while he was deployed to Iraq in 2004 and then again in 2006 in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom. While deployed to Iraq, Sergeant Acevedo was the youngest on his team, and despite that, he often had to make life or death decisions that could save or endanger people, and he did that with distinction. In 2008, Sergeant Acevedo was honorably discharged from the United States Army and still continued to serve veterans and our country after that. He spent a few years in the Ready Reserves and then went to work for the homeless screening clinic as part of HUD's Veteran Affairs Supportive Housing Program at the West LA Veteran Affairs Hospital. In April of 2012, Sergeant Acevedo was hired on as a full-time outreach specialist for the Chatsworth and Sepulveda Vet Centers, where he continues to help veterans receive the proper mental health counseling that they so often, so desperately need. He's currently pursuing a bachelor's degree in business administration at LA Mission College and will soon be transferring to CSUN. He hopes to one day open his own business in the San Fernando Valley, where he will be an employer of veterans as well. So it's with great honor that I recognize you and thank you, Sergeant Acevedo, for your service, both to our country, to the San Fernando Valley, and to the people of the city of Los Angeles. Thank you very much.
Mr. Fuentes.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Mr. Krekorian, let me add my thanks as well to you for helping us honor our veterans today. I was very moved by your words at the outset. And, you know, the military plays a very strong role, obviously, in so many ways, but in the Northeast San Fernando Valley, it really is something that is part of our lives. I, for example, was born in Fort Carson, Colorado, at an Army base. And I think it's so fitting that today we get a chance to honor so many veterans. But let me just, another personal point of privilege here, thank my colleague Bob Blumenfield. There is only one Veterans Parade in the city of Los Angeles, and it takes place tomorrow at 11 minutes past 11 a.m. in Mission Hills, in my district, at the corner of Brand and Laurel Canyon is the official review stand. And it's a parade that then staffer Bob Blumenfield and Felipe Fuentes and many others helped put together to honor that rich tradition of service in the San Fernando Valley, but in particular the Northeast San Fernando Valley. Which is why I'm so excited to be here today with Manny Montenegro, who is a veteran who served in the United States Army Reserve since July of 2003. Manny served 2 tours as an ammunition and ordnance specialist during Operation Iraqi Freedom in March of 2004 and in August of 2009. He, like all the veterans that we're honoring today, served his country proudly, with integrity, and a real sense of duty. Manny, like so many of our veterans, came home and there were challenges, and one of those was making sure that he could have a home for his family. And what we've done here as a city is tremendous, but we've partnered with organizations like Habitat for Humanity, which developed 12 homes in Sylmar, just half a mile away from my home. So I'm proud to call Manny my neighbor. But I'm also proud that groups like Habitat for Humanity and the California Department of Veterans Affairs are doing what we need to be doing, and that's serving our veterans who selflessly serve all of us. And so, in fact, we have a hero in those organizations honoring other heroes. So it's my absolute honor to congratulate Manuel Montenegro. Thank you for your service.
Mr. Harris Dawson.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. I am very proud today to rise in honor a veteran who has lived in the 8th Council District for over 50 years. Mr. Algie Lee was born in Louisiana, Homer, Louisiana, back in 1935. He enlisted in the United States Navy at the age of 17 under General Douglas MacArthur during the Korean conflict. This is a person who signed up for the military when they knew it was going to be a war. Unlike many of us who sign up and were not expecting necessarily to go into conflict. He went into conflict and became an engineman third class, responsible for work on aircraft carriers. He was discharged in 1956 and settled here in Southern California, in Long Beach, California, where he went to work for our Department of Water and Power, then Douglas Aircraft, and was even a cameraman at the old KHJ TV Channel 9. Locally, he served on the Police Advisory Board, the Empowerment Congress, the Manual Arts PTSA. He's also been the captain of the Brighton Avenue Block Club, participated in graffiti cleanups and a host of other things. I knew Mr. Lee a long, long time and had no idea of the valor that he put forward on the battlefield because he's so active in our community. And so we are very excited today to present him with a plaque and honor him as a part of our Veterans Day celebration. And before we lose our time, I also want to, like Councilmember Rue, recognize one of our staff members that served in the Vietnam conflict as a part of the Air Force and has worked tirelessly since that time to make sure Vietnam veterans in particular get the respect that all veterans deserve. And so I want to bring up Anthony Anderson. Come on up, Anthony. Anthony is not only a field deputy in CD8, but he was a mail carrier in the 8th District for over 25 years. And so he served his community abroad, served his community here at home, and now serves us on the council staff. So thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Mr. Lee. And thank you to all the veterans that joined us here today.
Mr. Price.
Thank you, Mr. President. I, too, want to thank my colleague, Councilman Krekorian, for the honors today that we have an opportunity to salute the veterans in our community. And I'm especially pleased to honor an individual who's rooted in South L.A., another veteran who's rooted in South L.A., Mr. London Carter. London, why don't you stand up and join us? He served in the U.S. Army from 1974 to 76. And currently serves as a volunteer at the West LA VA campus 3 days a week. He gets up and goes there spreading good words and encouragement to fellow veterans. He's more widely known as the ambassador of the Dunbar Hotel. I should say the mayor of the Dunbar on Central Avenue. And he's really a fixture there. He enjoys sharing the story of Central Avenue with neighbors and friends. And he really can tell you some stories about the good old days and about the good new days. When I first met Mr. Carter on a tour of the hotel, he literally opened up his door to us, as he's done with everyone who comes by the Dunbar. Since then, he's volunteered on several of our events. He doesn't balk at taking on responsibility, big or small. During the Jazz Festival, he's the first person on the scene, the last person to leave, and he really has done a lot for encouraging not only the residents in the area, but the businesses to be more involved and more engaged. So, London, I want to thank you not only for your military service, but what you continue to do in our community. And I want you to know that Central Avenue, South LA, and the City of Angels is grateful for your presence, your participation, and your service. We appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. And now, members, I'd like to call on myself. So if I could get it is with great pride that I present to you my friend, Chris Kauser, who served for 12 years in our armed forces. He was in Texas, Kentucky, Germany. Also was a technician in the Gulf War. He is here today. I have to acknowledge his mom, and put the cameras down because I want you to give him and his mom and wife a round of applause. Stand up, ladies. Angelique and Beatrice. You know, for most of us in this room, we have never woken up and were frightened, or ever thought about this country ever being devastated, or you always felt safe and secure. I know I have my entire life. And that's because of the men and the women that are before you today, many of those that from the past, those from the present, and those for the future. Could we please give them the type of a round of applause that they truly deserve? They deserve this and more. And there's something that you find in every service person, and that is a desire to serve that never goes away. Chris here, my friend, and Bud, now serves all the time, every day, preparing young people for the future by using sports as his tool. He's very disciplined and very methodical, and he has helped me in an area over on the southern part of my district that really needs help. I have never had to ask him twice to do anything. I send over 100 kids every year to camp. Mr. Fuentes has been with me because I go to his district. Now, this young man to my left is Chris's grandson. His name is Glam, okay? How that happened, but I love you, Glam. And he's one of the toughest kids that I've ever taken to camp. The ages, you have to be 8 to 12. He just turned 7. We got special permission, and he's been with us for 2 years. So this young man, since he was 5, has been hanging with the 8-year-olds. He follows instructions. Nobody bothers him because he's tough as nails. I've seen him fall and bounce up, and that could be attributed to his grandfather. And I've got a bunch of kids in the district, Chris, that you have actually helped. So I'm going to ask Glam. I want you to show your appreciation to your granddad. I'm going to ask you to present him with this resolution from the city of Los Angeles. So anyway, let's give him a round of applause. Here, Glam, hold it and give it to Look here. Mr. Bonin.
Mr. President, stand up. Mr. President and colleagues, I'm very excited to have with me today a friend, someone I look up to tremendously, someone who's a hero for this country, and someone who's a champion for the community he lives in. I'm joined today by Colonel Ernie Frankel. He retired as a colonel in the United States Marine Corps. He is 93 years old. He served in 3 different wars. He served as a Marine in the Pacific Theater during World War II. He was recalled for service during the Korean War, and he completed a brief tour of duty in Vietnam and retired as a colonel in the Marine Reserve with the Legion of Merit. Am I correct? In addition to protecting our nation, Colonel Frankel also has been a part of one of Los Angeles' greatest exports, the entertainment industry. He's an accomplished novelist, a screenwriter, and a producer. You've seen his work. His credits include Perry Mason, both the old and the new Perry Mason versions, I Spy, The Mod Squad, Mannix, and numerous movies of the week. He and his late wife, Louise, who just passed away about a year ago, were, and Ernie continues to be, incredible leaders in the Mountain Gate community, in the very northern part of my district. He is, for all intents and purposes, the gatekeeper for Mountain Gate. If you want to get something done, or you want to approach that community, you go through Ernie, because he's the guy in charge. Louise, his wife, I should mention, was a tremendous woman, love of his life, served on the Los Angeles Fire Commission for 8 or 10 years, and was absolutely beloved by the firefighters here in Los Angeles. Ernie also worked, I should note, for 5 years as a writer-director on the Apollo project in the Space Division of North American Aviation. And then he went on to the career in network television. I have known Ernie for about 10 years. He is, Mr. Wesson talked about the son of his honoree as being tough as nails. This is the original tough as nails. Ernie is tough. He's an incredible fighter. He has a quench for justice, particular passion for making his community better and the environment better. And he is a hero, not just for his military service, but his community service. And it's an honor to be able to honor you today.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And he still fits in his uniform.
All right.
I'll get a photo here.
Thanks.
Mr. Englander.
Thank you very much, colleagues. Before I call up my honoree today, I want to also give a special recognition to all the men and women who have served and continue to serve in the armed forces. I believe, in fact, I'm the only one today who has a representative that, and our honoree is a woman today. And so I want to give a special shout out and recognition. But before doing that, I also want to recognize my own family who has dedicated service. As many of you know, my father, who passed away many years ago, was a 100% disabled vet. 100% disabled vet. And I watched the struggles that he went through, both physically, financially, mentally, emotionally, psychologically, everything that comes with it. And it doesn't just bear the burden on the individual hero. It's also a tremendous sacrifice on the families. The families while they're here and you're there. The families that try to hold it together upon a return. And what it takes then, what it takes at that point is a special hero. Twice the citizen, not just the veterans who went to serve, but the ones that came back and continue to help those that then came back. That's a true remarkable hero. We have one in Dahlia. I'm proud to honor her today, a decorated Marine Corps veteran, director of the Department of Veteran Affairs in our Chatsworth Vet Center. Dahlia has worked for the Department of Veteran Affairs for the Vet Center program since 2007. She began her employment with the VA as a readjustment counselor. Just think about that as a title, readjustment counselor. I think we could all use one of those once in a while. Immediately upon graduating with her master's in social work, in 2010 she promoted to the Vet Center director for the North Orange County Center, and in 2014 she transferred to be the director of the Chatsworth Vet Center, where she has been active and in fact not only in local community service programs beyond her job, she's also participated in our regular interfaith breakfast where we bring all the faith organizations together to help veterans. I want to thank you for that and that participation as well. Dahlia has served in the United States Marine Corps, from 1992 to 1996 and joined the Army National Guard Reserves shortly after her discharge from the Marine Corps. In 96, Dahlia had continued her service in the Army National Guard Reserves and continues to do so to this day. She has had numerous deployments, including Okinawa, Japan. She also supported Operation Iraqi Freedom to Camp Ashraf, Iraq in 2005, Operation Enduring Freedom to Camp Phoenix in Afghanistan in 2011. She is the recipient of numerous military awards, but most significantly to the Bronze Star Medal and her Meritorious Service Medal. In 2007, upon returning from her deployment in Afghanistan, she was nominated by the battalion commander for the General MacArthur Award for Leadership in 2007. Dahlia received her Bachelor's of Science in Political Science from Loyola Marymount University and graduated with a Master's in Social Work from California State University, Los Angeles. She currently is attending California State University, Northridge, where she is working towards her Master's of Health Administration. Talking about a true hero's hero, continues to go out and educate and further herself just to enable herself to help others, to help the very ones that put their lives on the front line for all of us. So it is truly my honor and my privilege, on behalf of the people of Los Angeles, to congratulate you and thank you for your dedicated, lifelong service to all of us.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Mr. Mitch O'Farrell.
Thank you, Mr. President. As the son, grandson, cousin, and nephew of veterans, U.S. veterans, I stand here today, and I want to thank Councilmember Krekorian for leading this very important tradition in advance of Veterans Day, which is tomorrow. And to all the veterans gathered here today, I want to thank you. Thank you for the inspiration that you provide all of us through the example of your sacrifice, the example of your grace, the example of your experiences, and the example of your bravery. You give all of us that wonderful gift of inspiration, so I thank you. My honoree today is this handsome young 94-year-old man standing next to me. 94 years old, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Cipriano Leos. Born on August 4th, 1921 in San Antonio, Texas. Cipriano started working for the armed forces as a civilian, assembling various military uniforms in San Antonio from 1939 to 1944, until he served in the U.S. Navy in 1945 and 1946, stationed at a base in San Diego during World War II. Cipriano began working as a tailor in Hollywood in 1948 and started his business, Cipriano's Custom Tailor, in 1953 that is still open and operates to this day, 62 years later, still going. Beginning in 1979, he worked for 24 years as a costumer with multiple Hollywood studios. Cipriano was also a recipient of an honor I gave him for being a small business operator in the district, and we honor someone every month. So this is the second time I have the privilege of honoring you, this time for serving our great country and making the sacrifices that you did. So Cipriano Leos, I would like to honor you as my designee for this Veterans Day. Congratulations.
Now I'd like to recognize Mr. Jose Huizar.
Thank you, Mr. President, and it's a great honor to be standing here amongst our veterans and those who have served our country, and thank you so much for your service, and thank you, Mr. Krekorian, for organizing this event each and every year. It's a great way for these chambers, this city, to honor those who have given of themselves so that we have the freedoms in this country. And I'm proud today to be recognizing Miss Elizabeth Greco, who is 84 years young. She is a longtime El Sereno resident and an Air Force and Korean War veteran. I think we often forget the importance of women in the military, and Ms. Greco reminds us all how vital all our veterans have been to protecting our freedoms. Also, the Korean War is often referred to as the Forgotten War, and so it's a great honor today to remember and pay our respects to all our veterans, including an esteemed U.S. Air Force member from the Korean War. Born in 1931, Ms. Greco proudly served in the U.S. Air Force during the Korean War from 1950 to 1954, with stops at Lackland and Samson Air Force bases during her time of service. Ms. Greco was assigned to work at Air Force Base hospitals tending to wounded soldiers. She also served as a cook and hospital dietitian. Like so many of our returning veterans, Ms. Greco continued to serve others, working as an LA County social worker for more than 20 years. And even today, that service continues. Ms. Greco has volunteered for the last 8 years after her retirement at the El Sereno Senior Center. Ms. Greco comes from a military family with 3 brothers who all served proudly in the U.S. Army. And so we thank her and her family for their service. You know, Veterans Day is about taking the time to remember. It's easy to retell our history in broad strokes. It's much more difficult to really comprehend the sacrifices our veterans took to make our great history possible. Each veteran is really a point of light to our collective American dream. Without them, without their light, our dream is simply not possible. By remembering, honoring, and assisting them in their time of need after they return from service, we will keep that light burning. So thank you to our veterans, and thanks to people like our esteemed CD14 honoree, Miss Elizabeth Greco. Thank you so much.
And now I'd like to call on the representative from the 15th District, Joe Buscaino.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our honoree representing Council District 15 colleagues is Mr. John Garcia, a lifelong resident of Wilmington, enlisted in the U.S. Army in 1984, basic training at Fort Benning, Georgia. After completing basic training, he was assigned to the 2nd Infantry Division in South Korea, where he participated in ambush and recon patrols along the DMZ against North Korean communists. After 1 year in Korea, he volunteered for airborne training, where he was assigned the 1st Battalion, 505th Parachute Infantry Regiment, 82nd Airborne Division at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Mr. Garcia left the Army in 1987 as a sergeant and currently is a member of the Veterans of Foreign Affairs, Post 2967 in Wilmington, California. And this post, they are incredible. John Garcia and his fellow colleagues on the UFW post in Wilmington are ever present during events, ceremonies, and funerals of those who've given their life to our country. So John Garcia, on behalf of the residents of Council District 15 and the City of Los Angeles, we congratulate you and love you, and thanks for your service to our country.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and before Mr. Krekorian, you wrap this up, let me say on behalf of myself and all of your colleagues, this was a great job. Let's give Mr. Krekorian a good job. Real classy, real classy. Now we defer to you, Mr. Krekorian.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Colleagues, we've had the real pleasure and the real honor of recognizing 15 of the best our country has to offer today. But we know that right here in this chamber and throughout our city, right now in the employment of our city, we have police officers and firefighters and DWP linesmen and custodians and people in every other line of work in our city who came back from service to our country to serve our city. So if I may, Mr. President, I'd ask all of the veterans here to just, I know you don't like to be acknowledged, but raise your hand so that we can all recognize the veterans who are here in the chamber and the veterans throughout our city who are serving us today. One more time. And then finally, Mr. President, we are also joined by many guests of our veterans, and I think it's important to remember that for everyone who puts on a uniform, there are spouses, there are children, there are parents, there are brothers and sisters who sacrifice as well by the loss of their loved one in service, and too often who suffer the ultimate sacrifice. But for everyone who serves, the life of a military family is a hard one. So let's please recognize also the families of those who served as well.